It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Let's get it started on a Friday edition of the show. Thank you, Chad Erickson. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. We'll be joined by our friend Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online. Did you hear what the women of The View asked Stephen A. Smith about yesterday? And Stephen A. Smith said, "What?" We'll get to that. We'll also hear from our friend Tino, our NASCAR betting insider, because it's Friday, and that means it's a NASCAR Friday, and it's championship weekend in Phoenix, so we'll have that coming up with Tino, who's actually going to be in Phoenix for the championship race, so we'll get some thoughts with him on that. But we start things out in the NFL, Sam Yarnell, with a perplexed look on your face. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you got to spoil this for me, because I just foreshadowing, I'm going to be in the bathroom when Robert comes on to the show. So what did they say on The View? Because the only thing I saw about Stephen A. Smith is that he would strongly consider running for president.
That's what we got to talk about. I'm telling you, man, you smoke too much of your own stash, and that you smoke what you sell, and this is what happens. All right, so I got to talk about this game last night, because there are so many different angles to tackle this Bengals Ravens finish with. Let me say a few things. One, I don't want to hear anything about, when we talk about the great quarterbacks in the league, I don't want to hear anything about Joe Burrow's not this, Joe Burrow's not that. Joe Burrow's phenomenal. So that's the one thing I want to say. Second thing I want to say is Jamar Chase, elite level. We already knew this, but last night, just another shining example of how great he is. We know the Ravens suck as it relates to defending the pass. We saw that again on display last night. The turnover, up 21-7, fans booing the Ravens off the field after another terrible possession. The fumble, just past their own midfield or whatever it was. Bengals give the ball back to the Ravens. They go down and score. Make it 21-14 at that point. Big turning point in that game, because then all of a sudden you just felt the air come out of the Bengals defensively, who played great for 3 quarters. Which, I mean, you want to talk about collapse of collapses. So you get that. Now, look, we could sit here all day and talk about the way this game ended, that final drive for the Bengals, penalties that should have been called. They wind up getting into the end zone anyway. And then, of course, you have the final play of the game with Joe Burrow looking for Hudson over there in the end zone or near the goal line, and an incomplete pass. You have Gesicki getting held on the play. And then you have Burrow getting smacked in the face. And again, for all the flags we see in NFL games every week and games being over officiated, this is the one time you have to throw a flag on one of those plays, and you don't. And I cannot get past this when it comes to the NFL, that here we are the night after an amazing game. And we have to talk about the fact that the officiating, when it mattered most, was so terrible, Sam.
Yeah, so honestly, that wasn't my takeaway from this game. My takeaway from this game was Zach Taylor made the decision that we begged and begged and begged for Todd Bowles to make not 4 days ago.
I have no problem with it. No problem with it at all.
And no one has a problem with it. I think this is a lead or a message to the league, to every coach out there, that the general public, we're at a point in football where we've evolved to where the general public is not going to berate you for trying to win rather than trying not to lose. That was a huge step in the landscape of the NFL to me last night that is seemingly overlooked by everyone. Like, Zach Taylor did so much right in this game, and they got incredible.
Can I go 2 things, though? The 2 play calls on 4th down where they're throwing, bombs towards the end zone. Those were 2 very questionable fourth down play calls. And I know that they thought all night they can get that play over the top and get that long ball. And they did, obviously, on the play to Chase, where they initially tied the game, I think, at 28. But you've got to be kidding me. Both plays, you need a first down there, and both times they gave the football away. I'm just saying.
Sure, but one of those times they had a wide open wide receiver who Joe Burrow, who we're going to sit here and call a top 2 quarterback in the league because he threw for 400 yards on 50-something, or sorry, top 5, whatever, because he threw for 400 yards on 50-something attempts, but he freaking missed Jermaine Burton by 5 yards when he had 3 yards of separation against the defender on a walk-in touchdown. Yeah, it was fourth down, but the guy was wide open and walking in to score if the quarterback puts any sort of an accurate ball on him, and that was frankly one of the few times last night he wasn't under duress, because Cincinnati still, after having this problem for 6 years, has not built an offensive line around their franchise quarterback. It is astounding to me. Don't get me wrong, Jason.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow's a great NFL quarterback. I don't want to take anything away from him. That game last night to me was a demonstration in how that organization around him has failed him as a player.
And I said this, I put this out on X last night after the game, and I think it's a serious question. We all have to start considering that trip to the Super Bowl, where the Bengals came up just short against the Chiefs, we have to start to wonder if that is the closest he will ever get for the remainder of his career, considering he will spend it in Cincinnati with the Bengals, that one of the great quarterbacks of the game, not saying the greatest of his generation, I'm not getting hyperbolic here, but that one of the great quarterbacks of the game, that might be as close as he gets, as long as he's playing in a Bengals uniform, because it feels like with that loss last night, and again, I'm not trying to be dramatic here, that loss, when that ball hit the ground and no flags were thrown on that play, it felt to me like that was the sound of the window closing for Cincinnati, that loss last night in Baltimore, as dramatic as it was.
It's interesting. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say the window closing, but maybe I am, because here was
the guy
my
that preached about the window closing with all these players and contracts and all this stuff since I've met you.
And I get it. I think that they have had a little bit of a turnaround in terms of talent in a very short. Like, no one saw Chase Brown being as good as he is. Chase Brown is establishing himself as the top running back in the league. Jermaine Burton has a lot of talent, just off the field issues. My question to you is, Jason Page, how long until Jamar Chase asks out?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're close. Yeah. What games are we watching on Sunday in Week 10 in the NFL? We'll tell you next. All right, coming up in 10 minutes, Tino Pattigno. Moving up in the world. He gets 8 minutes instead of 7 on the show today, because it's a NASCAR Friday. And we've got a championship race to preview. Playoffs. 4 drivers enter. 1 will leave as NASCAR's playoff champion in Phoenix. So we'll get to that coming up in just a bit. Hey, a reminder, if you have not checked out our Substack yet, you don't know what you're missing. Like winning picks. This guy, Sam Yarnell, did an amazing job last night picking the NFL game. How about Yoshivas last night, by the way? I mean, he has 19 yards on 1 catch, like first drive of the game. I think his prop is, depending on where you were, it was either 23.5 or 24.5 on his yardage prop, his receiving yards prop. The whole game goes by. He gets nothing else. He almost had another catch in the second quarter that he dropped that would have probably gotten him over the hump. Fourth quarter, 4th down and 10. He gets the catch that keeps the drive going and gives the Bengals a shot to win that game, to hit the over on his prop. But if you are not following us on Substack, you are missing out on winning picks. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Sam did really well last night. Subscribe to the SportsWrap Substack. It is free, and free is great when we're giving you winning picks and you have a chance to win some money. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun so far. We're hot. Let's keep doing it. Let's hope we survive this first weekend of the NFL of the Substack in the NFL.
Yeah, we're going to see how we do there. We'll have Page versus the Prince coming up a little later on in the show as well. All right, Sam Yarnell, it is week 10 in the NFL. We got some games to watch this weekend. Which ones are you keeping an eye on, sir?
All right, Jason, the first game that I'll be locked into starts bright and early on Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. The Giants and the Panthers. Sam, why are you going to be locked in on a Giants-Panthers game happening in Germany? Because I hate myself, that's why. Listen, this game is like unstoppable force versus other it's like movable object versus other movable object and stoppable force against very stoppable force. This game is going to be so ugly, and I cannot wait to bet every ugly bet in this game. I don't have any of it in Page versus the Prince, so I'm just going to rip the card right now. We'll go under in the game. We'll
How's
go
the number
over
40 and a half, Sam? How is the number 40 and a half?
No idea. It's not even the lowest total on the board this week.
No.
I love it. Juicy. Give me whichever quarterback starts for Carolina, probably Bryce Young. Give me him to throw a pick. Give me him under the passing yards. Give me over total turnovers in the game. Give me over total punts in the game. This game might have 6 total points in it, and I'm going to be locked in the whole time. I can't wait to watch it. I love ugly football. That is going to be ugly football. My other game that I'll be locked into, Jason Page, a battle for the NFC East, or I guess maybe more for relevancy in the NFC East. Eagles and Cowboys in Jerry's World. I don't get why the number's so big on this game. I'm not giving away any picks right now on this game because I'm sure I'll get involved in it one way or another over on our Substack. But this is like a measuring stick game for both teams. Are the Eagles all the way back? Is Sirianni off of fraud watch? And is the Cowboys season really dead? This is a wooden stake game. Can the Eagles put the wooden stake into the Cowboys? I'll be locked in to see if any of that unfolds Sunday afternoon.
Okay. That Cowboys Eagles game has a lot of interest to me too. We'll just say that. Little foreshadowing for Page versus the Prince. 2 games this weekend that I am keeping an eye on in the NFL. Let's go Steelers Commanders. I mean, 2 teams that, while they have great records, 2 teams leading their divisions at the same time, I don't think either of these teams wind up in the Super Bowl. I do believe the Steelers have the better shot of the 2, and I think we're going to learn a lot this weekend about the Steelers having to go on the road. But again, what they do and the way they play, it's always going to travel well. You can win ugly anywhere. You can win ugly on a snow-covered field in Lambeau Field. You can win ugly indoors. You can win ugly anywhere, on a train, on a plane. It's a Dr. Seuss thing. You can win anywhere when you play the way the Steelers play. Just muck it up, 20-17, 20-16. We will have more on this game in Page versus the Prince. Another game for you, Lions-Texans. Again, I have poo-pooed the Texans. I know you had poo-pooed on your bingo card being said on the show. I have kind of taken a dump on the Texans all season. This is their opportunity to prove me, and I think a lot of the football community, wrong about the idea that, yes, while they have a nice record, are they really a contender? This is a huge game for the Texans this week. I'll be curious to see how they show up in this one. And we all know how well the Lions have been playing. They are my favorite to come out of the NFC. Can I give you a couple of bonus babies here? Let me give you one. In college on Saturday, Colorado, number 20 in the nation, against Texas Tech. If we're talking about Colorado potentially as a Big 12 championship winner, if we're talking about Colorado potentially making the playoff, this is the game they have to have. Watch that one this weekend, Texas Tech and Colorado. I'll give you one more, Alabama and LSU. Watch for those 2 games this weekend. So a couple of college games I wanted to just throw out there for you.
All right. Well, the college game that you should be locking into is Georgia Ole Miss, because this is an elimination game for Ole Miss. And quite frankly, if Georgia loses too, they're gonna have a lot of questions surrounding that program.
Ole Miss isn't winning that game. Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions last week, and they found a way to win.
Ole Miss money line, run and get it now. My gosh, Jason Page said that so confidently, we might just have to fade him.
Okay. Didn't you say you had another NFL game you were watching too?
Yes, my bonus in the NFL. I had to get the college off my chest. Right. You went all college on me for Jets Cardinals. I mean, I can't talk too much about this game because I'm going to get to it again in Page versus the Prince. But like, hey, does the Call of Duty curse catch up with Kyler this week?
What was that again? What was that? And look, is there momentum for the Jets? Is there momentum for the Jets?
Oh my God! Stop it!
Just saying, man. You never know what's going to spark a team. That Garrett Wilson catch might have been the season-changing catch.
Yeah,
you just
they'll
never
win
know.
8 straight and go 11-6 and back into the playoffs.
It's Aaron Rodgers, 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Gotta give something to Jet fans. A cookie, just a little cookie. We're coming back. Tino's next. All right, we keep things moving on this Friday edition of the program. Robert Littal, Black Sports Online. Talk about the top stories of the week with him coming up in 10 minutes. Something a little different in the 3 spot today. Tino Pattigno has graduated from the 7-minute segment to the 8-minute segment on the show today. Yes. Because we got, let's be honest. We got a championship. We got a champion being crowned this weekend in Phoenix for NASCAR in these playoffs, which are down to their final 4 drivers. And you're going to be there, first of all. Congratulations. You're not going to be racing, but you're going to be there, which is pretty good. Have you ever gotten in a race car, by the way? You've never done one of the experiences? Have you ever done like those NASCAR experiences where you could drive around a track?
Honestly, haven't done that yet. So that would be really cool.
They have it here in Vegas, and come hell or high water, I'm going to do it. It's gotta happen.
We should do it together. Yes, great content. Put it on the show. Yeah. Everyone tune in. It'll happen.
Yeah, it's got to be done. All right. First of all, before we get to what transpired, or what's going to transpire this week, and get your thoughts on that, we got to talk about this controversial finish in Martinsville. Which, by the way, I was watching, even on an NFL Sunday. I was tuned in for Martinsville. You've got NASCAR suspending 9 people, $600,000 in fines for the actions of Ross Chastain, Austin Dillon, Bubba Wallace. Those final laps in last weekend's race. You got NASCAR suspending a team executive, a crew chief, and a spotter for each of the 3 teams. But let me ask you an honest question. When you're talking about race manipulation and literally blocking people and sort of the integrity of the sport, was the punishment enough?
I think
I've heard some people suggest they should have parked some of these cars.
Well, and that's the exact point I was about to mention, because I think it's enough to say NASCAR does not want this to continue happening, but I don't think it's enough for them, the drivers and teams, to stop figuring out ways to manipulate a race. Now, I also want to stand up here and say, this to me is something where it's about competition, right? That's what NASCAR wants to instill each and every week, that if you are blocking 2 Chevys behind William Byron, blocking, not racing as hard as they can to pass him, and it was clearly shown on the racetrack, obviously heard over the radio and everything like that. That's where NASCAR found their main form of evidence. My point is, though, it's about the competition factor, right? I don't necessarily mind them trying to do that, because they're competing against the Toyotas and the Fords to get that William Byron Chevy into the championship. Now, it was race manipulation, so therefore that's what NASCAR deems it as. I do also agree with what you're saying, and what other people have came out and said, had they parked those drivers, we would have never seen this, or any type of manipulation to that extent happen again. But To me, that's racing. You're going to try to find any inch, any second, a single point to advantage and to have that. I understand.
Here's the thing. I understand trying to find an edge to win. I don't understand trying to find an edge to manipulate or sort of taint the way the race is going to end. That's my issue with it. You know,
if you're fighting for a championship, That's better than a win.
I mean, but if you're bumping somebody at the end of a race to try and win, like Austin Dillon, that I could actually almost understand that more than what I saw at the end of this race.
I think this instance is obviously less egregious than Austin Dillon as well, right? But I think it's a way where you have manufacturers for a reason to work together. Chevys work with Chevys, Ford worked with Fords, and obviously the Toyotas there too. I think this scenario, it didn't, to them and the teams, didn't seem as much of a punishment or as big of a deal to them as now it is in hindsight, because they were just doing all it takes to get their Chevy driver in the playoffs. But the biggest difference from working together like that in that scenario than what we see at super speedways, bump drafting and everything like that is the fact that that is constant competition. Yes, you're helping block a driver or move someone out of the way to get a position at that track, but you're gaining positions. You're not ever trying to block and hold up the crowd to pass.
All right, let's talk about this weekend's finale to the NASCAR season. Obviously, you got Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, William Byron. What do you see when you look at these four drivers, and how do you sort of handicap this one?
Well, I'm looking at Ryan Blaney, and the biggest reason is this is his best track. Not only did he do what he needed to, and that was winning at Martinsville last week to lock himself into this championship 4, but he did that exactly the same way last season. So when I look at a clutch moment like that, that was a walk-off win. That was, ice in your veins, doing whatever you needed to make that happen to get to the championship 4. But now he's in there for the second time, and he won the championship last year. So to me, not only at Phoenix specifically for Ryan Blaney, he has 17 starts, 8 top 5 finishes, 12 top 10s, 3 poles, 431 laps led. But the biggest thing is a 3.0 average finish in the next gen era at this track, the best out among all active drivers. Now, the best part about this too is Blaney's never won at Phoenix. He actually came really close last year, but Ross Chastain, for the first time in 10 years that we've seen, it was a non-championship driver winning the championship race. Blaney finished in second. Blaney also finished in second in this race to his teammate Joey Logano in 2022 when Joey won the championship. Blaney could have easily passed Logano. It wasn't a race manipulation type of thing, but it was like teammates in the championship, let's have him get the win just in case someone drives up and tries to pass him. My biggest thing here is Blaney is one of the clutchest drivers in the sport. I think he has less pressure because they're in the same scenario, at Martinsville, having to win there last season and doing this to get a championship last season. So for him to go back-to-back for the first time in this next-gen playoff era, and also for the first time since Jimmy Johnson did it in 2009, 2010, I really like his odds to do so in this one.
Any chance we see a non-playoff driver win this race?
There is, and I think the main driver we have to keep an eye out for is Christopher Bell, especially what happened at last weekend in Martinsville, right? We talked about William Byron's side of the race manipulation, but Christopher Bell was on the losing side of that. And I think one other thing I need to mention with all of this playing out was the fact that they were tied in points trying to get to the championship 4. You go through an entire season, right? A single lap, a single point, a single stage win, victory, a certain position in the field all matters. And that's what I love about this format. So Christopher Bell, keep an eye out for him.
All right, enjoy the race this weekend out there in Phoenix. Hope you have a good time. I actually wish I was going. Not gonna lie, wish I was going. It's only a 4-hour drive. I know. I've thought about it. Still thinking about it. Tino Pattigno, it's been fun all season. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to the championship.
Let's take it to segment 4 on this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. If it's a Friday, that means Robert Littal is hanging out with us, founder of Black Sports Hub. In the building. He's in the building. I like the matching Ohio State Louis Vuitton gear you got going on today.
I'm feeling good. We're back in the mix. Number 2 in the country.
Oh, don't worry. I plan to ask you about that. We'll do that in the next segment. Talk a little college football because I know you're an Ohio State guy. Let's start. We talked about it at the top of the show. I hate the fact. Maybe I don't hate the fact because I'm in the story business, and this is certainly a story. But we watched this. We watched this Thursday night NFL game, and you get the controversial finish again. And here we are talking about officials and officiating. And what blows my mind, Robert, is we live in a world of instant replay. We're inside 2 minutes. They can go and check they go check, sideline plays, clock, all this stuff, the first down markers. They can go check all these things, Robert Littal. But you're telling me there's no way that inside of 2 minutes we can't have a way for somebody to call down to the officials and say, man, you missed that holding call, or man, you missed Joe Burrow getting punched in the face, basically, to end the game. Like, I can't wrap my head around that.
It's a catch-22 because you want the players to be the reason, that the game finishes the way it is. You don't want a game ending in a flag fest. But then also, if it's egregious, you also don't want that just to be something that's just let go. Like, I'm all for, unless, somebody's getting actually clotheslined on the field, that the refs let the players play. Like, I felt like the Joe Burrow thing at the end was incidental. Like, he was trying to, knock down the pass and he popped him in the face. If we start calling every little thing, then it's going to be the opposite side's going to come out. It's like, is this just a game of football, or is it over? Is it over officiated? So I was okay with it. I'll be honest with you. I like if what happens on the play doesn't really affect the play. Like, I don't thought that Joe Burrow getting hit affected the play. I mean, the right hand from
getting
the
held
Ravens
though.
Getting hit. Now the holding in the end zone. Maybe that's a little different.
Yeah, and Gesicki getting held in the end zone is obviously a crucial play there. And, I mean, the fact that officials are just like, and there's just no culpability. You'll see these officials on another big game at some point somewhere down the line, and there's just no culpability in it. I said also in that first segment today that I'm starting to become of the belief that Joe Burrow losing to the Chiefs is as close as he's ever getting to a Super Bowl as long as he's in Cincinnati. Because it feels like with every loss right now and where this team is in the season that the window's closing for this group.
Well, it's the Bengals. I mean, so, they kind of have a history of this, of where they're really good for 1 or 2 years going back to the 80s. They've been in the Super Bowl a couple of times, and then they'll be bad for like 10 years in a row. They get good for a year or two, and then they're bad. They remind me of the Florida Marlins or the Miami Marlins, whatever the hell they're called, right now. To get to the World Series, except they actually win when they get to the World Series. So, Lamar Jackson is Joe Burrow's daddy. I mean, that fact is true. He does have success against Mahomes when others don't. But you have to get to that point to have that, and it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs, this year unless they really go on a run.
Yeah, something special is going to have to happen. Speaking of something special, and I don't even know how to segue to this, but I'm going to. Stephen A. Smith, our old buddy from ESPN, on The View yesterday, because why anybody wants to talk to Stephen A. Smith about anything other than the NBA, I don't know. They did on The View yesterday. Watch and listen.
You've been asked, I hear, about running for political office in the future. And some people have said that they could see you running for president. Mm-hmm. Would you do that? You think you qualified to run for president? I mean, the bar is pretty low anyway.
No. I do not.
Can you rephrase that?
I just think that the bar is really low because Trump really had no political experience and went from 0 to 100, right? He didn't start in the city council and stuff like that. So the bar is low. Anyone can run.
I have said this on many occasions. The answer would be hell no.
All right. I don't need to hear his rationale. The fact that it's even being asked is what drives me nuts. I mean, this guy's out of his league if he even gets out of the sports realm on anything other than the NBA. And there are actually people, is this like a Trump thing where he's like, people tell me? Is it one of those things? Are people really asking Sonny Hostin? Are people really saying, I've heard that Stephen A. Smith should run for, come on, Robert, help me out here.
I'm sure there's people, the yes men and the yes women that, feed his ego that probably tells him this. I think what she said right at the beginning is something that we should take into consideration. The bar is very low. It does not take much.
It was a backhanded compliment.
On Twitter the other day.
Yeah.
I don't think Stephen A. Smith could, of course, win the presidency. But someone like, say, The Rock, a professional wrestler and actor with no political really experience, I think he could walk in and win the presidency because the bar is very low. And it appears, at least, well, it doesn't even appear. Our country prefers con men. They prefer to be told things that they just want to hear. And in some regards, I think they even know the type of person that they are putting in offices and don't care. It's not just Trump. I mean, Ted Cruz keeps winning. The DeSantis out in Florida keeps winning. And not winning by a little, winning by a lot. Ted Cruz went to Cancun.
Cancun, baby.
People were dying and freezing to death, and he was sipping margaritas. And they voted him in again, like the sixth time. So at this point, I'm like, well, this is what the country, wants. So hell, maybe Stephen A. Smith could win. Obviously, we've seen stranger things happen.
I don't think it can get any stranger than where we are right now, Robert Littal. We're coming back. Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online, hanging out with us on SportsWrap on a Friday. Don't go anywhere. All right, another segment with Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder, hangs out with us every Friday on the show, talk about some of the top stories from the week. All right. I see you with your Ohio State Buckeyes gear on. Oregon beat them earlier in the year. We gotta mention that. Number one team in the college football playoff rankings. And look, ultimately, I think what it comes down to for Ohio State is do your job, beat Indiana, and you're in obviously a pretty good position, and we'll get a chance to see these two teams, Oregon and Ohio State, playing in the playoffs. So give me a thought here on where you are with this Buckeyes team and what Ryan Day's doing.
Well, I mean, it's really the same Ohio State team that we see every year. They're talented enough to win a championship. I think they have a little more wiggle room because it's a 12 team. They're going to get in, regardless. It's Ohio State. I think certain teams, as long as they don't have 3 or 4 losses, just for a rating standpoint, are going to get into the playoffs. But I think it's very important that we know that now it's just more interesting because I'm looking at teams 9 to 12, and I'm like, oh man, Boise State might get in, who almost beat, Oregon, SMU, BYU. This is what we wanted from that playoff, is the fact that now there's more teams, and there's a possibility of that Cinderella story in college football that we never could get before.
I was talking about it with Bill Bender, our friend who joins us every Monday on the show, college football writer over at Sporting News, and he comes on every Monday, and I said, if Army wins out, if Army finds a way to beat Notre Dame, does Army get into the playoff? And he was like, yeah. He was like, Army would absolutely get into the top 12. If Army finishes the season perfect, Army could be in the playoff. Could you imagine a college football playoff with Army in it?
I think that's exactly what they were shooting for. Just so we have these other storylines. So it's not always Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, just over and over, Clemson, over and over again. And it also gives redemption opportunities for someone like, say, Franklin at Penn State. Can't beat Ohio State, can't win a big game, but now every year he would be out the playoffs for this. Now he can get in. Maybe they get hot. You never know, because a championship overroots anything else. That's the problem with Ryan Day. If he had a championship, a lot of this other stuff, wouldn't matter. I mean, Harbaugh wasn't good at Michigan, but he won a championship, and now they don't talk about the first part of his career.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of these coaches need.
Yeah, and Franklin drives me nuts. The way he's handled that situation with the 2 players accused of rape and all. It's just, Penn State can't be far enough away from the playoffs for my liking. Are the Blue Bloods still getting too much love, though, when you look at the way these rankings shake down?
I think they're always going to be high. I mean, I think the point of going to 12 is to give some other teams some hope. I think ideally when you get down to the final 4, the final 8, they want the big names in there. But this is just to calm some of the people that say, hey, you have to have some new blood in this system, and I like it. I'm a big fan of it.
I want to get your thoughts as somebody who's worked in the media for a long time and deals with players and has been in locker rooms and talks to athletes and things like that and covers them. This Joel Embiid story, and I talked about it earlier in the week with our friend Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Obviously, this whole thing took a weird turn with Marcus Hayes, the story he wrote for the Philly Inquirer, the column he wrote. It mentioned Joel Embiid's deceased brother, died in a car accident, all of this. But then you get Embiid shoving him and he gets a 3-game suspension. I'm starting to wonder, and not even wonder, I'm starting to see it. Players are going to pull away more and more from talking to the media. And they're just going to say, hey, you want to know my thoughts on something? Watch my TikTok. You want to know my thoughts on something? Listen to my podcast or watch this show that I appear on, whatever it may be. And I think we've sort of reached the critical mass point on this, Robert, where players are just going to stop talking to me. They're just going to give stock yes and no answers. And the media that sometimes takes liberties and goes after some of these guys and maybe crosses a line like Marcus Hayes probably did in this case are going to be responsible for guys losing their jobs. Because if players stop talking to the media outlets don't need none of you anymore.
Well, I mean, first, they don't want them in the locker room anymore. We've seen that clearly. Secondly, with the advent of all of these podcast athletes that you have, they feel like they are the media now. And on social media where they can respond. You see, Kevin Durant uses that perfectly when he wants to respond.
Draymond Green.
To anything. Yeah, so, and let me be honest with you. I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often because there are certain media people that talk a little bit out of pocket, and they do it behind the shield of, they're in the media, and the athlete can't put their hands on the media. But, you're a fine line talking about people, deceased relatives and their children. I mean, I told my wife this. I said, listen, if someone had talked about my daughter like that and said, well, we don't like, Rob because, his daughter, and he's not doing a good example for his daughter, I would go look for him. And that would be a problem. With that. So even though I think everything else in the article was fair game, I have no problem. If he would have punched him in the face and knocked him out, I would have been like, so, what's for dinner tonight?
Yeah, I just think, well, the only thing I'll say though, Embiid likes to throw a lot of stuff out there on social media. And he likes to be a Twitter tough guy, and he likes to be a social media tough guy. And then when it got thrown his way, albeit over the line, he kind of became a little bit of a snowflake.
Well, athletes are one of the most sensitive people in the world. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know exactly why. I mean, if I was making $100 million, a lot of stuff I would
roll right off my back. Yeah, it would roll right off my back.
There's a line, but for the most, when they say they don't read and they lie, I know athletes. I mean, we saw Trayvon Diggs. He didn't take his pads off before he said, why are you talking about me on Twitter?
I know. Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder. Always appreciate you, my man. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, hopefully we won't get punched or anything we said.
We're coming back.
Smith gonna come back.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby. But before we do, a couple of reminders. One, we've got the SportsWrap Substack. Brand new. It's free to subscribe. We've got insider betting picks. We've got clips from the show. We have extended interviews. Matter of fact, we got one going up today. Yesterday we had Dennis Bernstein on the show from thefourthperiod.com and SiriusXM NHL Radio. Asked him a question about the Utah Hockey Club, and he gave some pretty interesting thoughts. Wasn't in yesterday's interview. You will hear that or see that on the Substack coming up a little later on today. Anytime news breaks, keep an eye on our Substack. Go and subscribe, updates, guest updates, all sorts of good stuff. It is the SportsWrap Substack. Go and check that out. SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast available Monday through Friday. If you miss anything from the show, go and check it out there. Oh, look, Sam thinks he's on camera. Oh, there he is. There you go. Very nice, Sam. Yep. Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. Go and check that out as well. All right. Without any further delay, on this Friday, it's time.
It's Friday, and that means it's time for the weekly face-off for sports betting bragging rights. It's Paige versus the Prince on the Sports Wrap.
All right, Sam Yarnell. Week 10 in the NFL. To tell people, update people. I know it's hard to believe it is week 10 already. Sam is 21-15 after another 2-2 performance last week. I am 19-17, a little slippage there, after back-to-back 1-3 weeks for yours truly. Like the Jets, we will look to recover, rebound, and start to put it together. Sam Yarnell, you're up first. What do you got?
I'm so glad you said that. My first pick this week, Jason Page. We are fading the New York Jets. Give me Arizona Cardinals plus 1.5. I love them on the money line here. Listen, home dogs, they just tend to be hungrier. They tend to run a little bit faster. I call this one the Jason Page special. Give me the home dog down in Arizona. Cardinals plus 1.5. I know I've been talking about Kyler doing this whole Call of Duty thing. We'll just forget about that for this game, I guess, because I don't like the Jets. I don't think that they're in a place where they're poised to beat a team that's been playing as well as the Arizona Cardinals have right now. Give me the Cardinals plus 1.5. Love to sprinkle on the money line as well, but for the purposes of this exercise, give me the points. Next, we'll go under in maybe the ugliest game of the week. Lowest total I could find on the board. Under 38.5 in Patriots-Bears. Rookie quarterback against a good defense, rookie quarterback against a decent defense. I just think that it spells kind of like a 13-10 final score. This doesn't feel like a game where Caleb Williams figures it all out. This is a guy who's been trending further and further down, going into a tough environment. Going into to play a tough defense in the New England Patriots, led by a guy who's been around that Patriots defense like we talk about for decades. I think the Patriots have a little bit of fire in their belly, especially for this game, rookie quarterback versus rookie quarterback. Give me the under 38.5 in Patriots Bears. My next pick, Falcons minus 3.5 on the road against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are lost. We talked about it on the show this week. Give me the Atlanta Falcons to just go in there and dog walk them. And then finally, the game that Jason Page mentioned just earlier in the show today, that one that's late at night on Sunday night on a fast track down in Houston, over 48.5 in Lions-Texans. I don't really care that the Texans don't have Stephon Diggs. I think that their offense really needs to figure it out in some game, and this is probably that game. We know what the Lions offense does, especially when they're indoors, just like what they did last week outside.
All right, Sam, I got 2 totals, 2 spreads. Getting back to a little bit of balance in the world. Steelers Commanders under 44.5. I don't see a lot of points in this game. And I think it's one of those games where the Steelers kind of bring the Commanders back down to earth a little bit. I like the Steelers to win the game, but more than anything, and for the purposes of this exercise, as Sam would say, give me under 44.5. Such academia talk. See, you think you're smarter than the rest of us, don't you? That's the problem. 44.5 is the total. Give me the under with the Steelers and the Commanders. Broncos Chiefs. 41.5 feels high. I don't see a lot of points being scored in this game. I like the under between the Broncos and the Chiefs. 41.5. Give me the under. Denver and Kansas City. 49ers and Buccaneers. Might surprise you, Sam, but I like Tampa Bay with the 6.5. Home dogs, baby. Give me some home dogs. I will take the Buccaneers plus 6.5 at home as Christian McCaffrey gets back on the field for the Niners. I think that is a close game. I'm not picking a winner, but I do think it is going to stay within that 6.5. Eagles and Cowboys, Sam Yarnell. Give me the Cowboys plus 7. They got to win a game at home at some point.
The Cooper Rush special.
Yes, it is the Cooper Rush special. Give me the Cowboys +7. Look, the guy wins. I mean, there's no getting around it. I mean, Cooper Rush wins football games. I have no problem taking Cooper Rush in a big spot. Give me the Cowboys +7 to wrap things up. It's going to do it for us. I feel good. I feel good about my picks. I think we got some winners this week.
Let's win some games.
Let's go meet people at the window. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Robert Littal, Tino, Pattigno. You, Sam Yarnell, have a great weekend, sir. We'll see you all back here on Monday for more Sports Wrap, or this weekend for Sports Wrap Weekend Edition. I'll see you then.